All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Whitecap, the Canadian Sailing Podcast. My name is Dave Crichton, and I am a older dinghy sailor, overaged, and a longtime follower of the racing scene in Canada. I also manage a sailing collective in New Brunswick called the Skull Island Race Team. Check us out on Instagram. Today, super excited to have Phil Robertson on the podcast. Phil is a two-time world match racing champion, two-time M32 world champion, as well as having multiple top 10 finishes in the world championships in both ACATs and foiling moths. He was a Sail GP skipper for China in season 1, where they placed third, and season 2 he helmed Spain and is currently the skipper of the newest team on the block, Canada's Sail GP team. Thank you and welcome, Phil.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's exciting to be representing this country. That's one thing I'm really looking forward to.
Oh, that's great. Did that sound about right, that intro?
Well, it sounds a bit. You overdid it, I think, to be honest.
I have to say, I'm so impressed that you guys, like you and a bunch of the other Sail GP skippers, have the time to get out in a moth and an ACAT. And like, where do you find the time to train up on these boats?
I think, well, one thing we don't have is actually time in the F50, which is quite surprising. Yeah, the boats are very labour thirsty, I would say, and every day you sort of do on the water is maybe about 3 to 4 hours long maximum, sometimes only an hour, and it probably takes another day just to get it back to sailing again. So there's a lot of maintenance that goes on in the background, and it's a huge operation. So it's yeah,
Wow.
super important to be doing as much other sailing as we can, and
Yeah,
the moth and the ACAT dinghy sailing, it's where you sharpen your skills, I guess.
that's amazing. It's just like, did you guys, I thought was your sixth at the Moth Worlds last year?
Yeah, it was the first. Yeah, it was the first regatta I did in the moth actually,
No way.
and
First time?
yeah, wasn't quite sure how I was going to get on. I'm not the biggest guy, so that they seem to like quite big, heavy laser sailors or fin sailors to swing them down. But yeah, it probably suited me actually. The conditions, it was a little bit tricky in Malchesney on Lake Garda and about 10 knots. So yeah, it seemed to play into my hands a bit, and yeah, I sort of surprised myself with that finish. So it was good.
That's amazing. It's amazing. It's like you guys are toying with the regular public. Anyway, we're going to start out with some rapid fire questions. Just quick 1 word, 2 word answers, whatever. So first off, fleet racing or match racing?
Match racing,
All right. P class, optimist, or open deck?
P class.
Oh, nice. Windward start or a beam reach start?
Ooh, reaching starts.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll talk about that more later. Um, Worst boat to collide in?
Ooh, an F50.
Really? Okay, we could talk more about that as well. Slowest boat you've ever raced, or match raced, I guess.
Probably a Catalina 37, I think, in long
Okay,
37 or 36, one of those.
I think it's a 37. Yeah. What is your 2K time?
My 2K time on an
Yeah.
erg.
Well, yeah, just rowing. I was thinking like,
Rowing. Oh, geez. I'm. You got to take a look at me. I'm rapid fire, but I have the world's shortest legs, so the erg isn't really my favorite thing.
okay,
I have no idea, to be honest. I haven't done
okay,
one in so long.
okay. Um, do you prefer upwind or downwind for racing?
Definitely downwind. I think that's an easy one.
Okay. Best sailing store you've ever been in?
Best what? Sorry.
Sailing store, like a store for buying gear and
Ooh,
stuff.
geez, no idea.
Really? Okay.
No, I don't really have a.
Can
Yeah,
you think one that you really like say New
one,
Zealand?
probably one that just has what I'm after.
Okay. Um, Zyke, Rooster, or Forward Whip?
Psych.
Nice. Everyone, that's 100% of all my guests so far.
Yeah.
I like some Rooster stuff myself. Um, how many languages can you say starboard in? And can you say divorce? Just really? Okay. I guess that's the language on the race course, no matter where you are. So, and then did have you spent any time selling lasers or racing lasers?
Never. No.
Oh, okay.
I've raced a laser for 24 hours once in a 24-hour race around a lake in Auckland, and It was the first time and last time I've sailed a laser, and it's probably the most sore I've been the day after.
Okay, on to the real. Was that cool?
Yeah,
The rapid fire? Okay.
sounds good.
So I read that you grew up sailing with your dad in Sunburst. Is that the boat?
Yeah,
He built
exactly.
them?
Yeah.
And did you race with him at all?
Yeah, we used to race. We'd race Sunday afternoons, and I pretty much just would fall asleep on a Sunday afternoon in the boat while he raced it around the track and drag my arms and legs in the water and have a good old afternoon. But yeah, it's definitely changed a bit since those days.
Right.
That
So
was
until
the beginning.
until about what age were you sailing with him and racing with
It's
him?
probably up until I was about 10 years old. I was sort of sailing with him and mainly just for fun. We weren't the most competitive in the fleet. But yeah, it was good fun and yeah, it was rather enjoyable actually, and mainly on holidays as well. We'd always have a yacht on holidays and just go and cruise around and run it up on the beach and have a good time. So
Uh,
it's definitely the way you want to get into sailing is enjoying it.
Actually, that was exactly what I wanted to get into. I mean, not enjoying it. Obviously, that's the most important thing. But do you think that learning to sail like within your family is a different? I think it's a different experience that a lot of people have, and I wonder what you think about that in terms of how it affected you down the road, like learning to sail with your dad versus going to a like versus just going to a club to begin with.
Yeah, I guess I never went to a sailing school at a club or anything like that. So all I did was sail with my dad and sort of I guess learned a bit. And I had an older brother, and I'm obviously quite competitive, and I think that sort of sparked the inside of me to get out there on my own and give it a crack. So I'd follow my older brother around the racetrack, and when I was once I'd stop sailing with my dad, and that's probably what yeah just was straight into the racing. So yeah, it's quite a good way to get into it actually. Just that enjoyment and having fun, and yeah, it's still pretty fun to this day, I must say.
I just think sometimes kids get put in like a bathtub for until they're 15, and they might not want to so much. Not to say, I mean, I think the people who grow up sailing opties and I guess P class as well in New Zealand, they tend to be really good sailors, right? But I don't know. I don't know. What do you think about that? Learning what
Yeah.
kind of boat you should learn to sail in.
It's quite interesting. I sort of look at the people around my generation and who's still sort of in the industry, and all the guys that were winning all the national Optimist champs and P class champs, and all the youth classes as well. In my era, none of them are around anymore, and I do put a little bit of that down to the fact that maybe they pushed a bit hard too young and a bit forced into it, and I was sort of always somewhere near the podium or on it, but I was never winning. And I actually stopped sailing when I was about 17 or 16 because my option was to go and sail a 470. Was sort of my destiny with my size and shape and the boats that were in New Zealand at the time, and it didn't excite me one bit. So I sort of stopped until I found match racing and sailing bigger boats, and that got me back into it. And yeah, I loved it and haven't stopped since.
That's so that's fascinating,
Mm.
really. Like to go from well, you were so you're doing P class
Yeah,
before that
exactly.
for
I did
four
the P
seventies.
class, then I sort of did two short seasons in a 420. And the first season was quite fun. The second one was not so fun anymore. And yeah, it's a little unfortunate. We didn't really have fast boats in that day and age. Not that I'm the oldest person, but the 29er and 49er weren't really a thing, and cat sailing wasn't really a thing either. So yeah, that was sort of my destiny, and it didn't excite me one bit.
That's cool. I mean, you think it was partially because of your body size? Like I know that is an issue with a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly. I'm quite short, and I could be quite small. I would probably be a perfect 470 skipper, just the way I'm built. And yeah, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So yeah, like I guess I stopped sailing for a bit.
I had a kid that I taught sailing who was he was smaller, he was 140 pounds, and I used to say just without even thinking, I'd say I think the best sailor in the world is the person who wins the Laser World Championship. And he said, what if the best sailor in the world is 140 pounds, right? So
Yeah, it's true. Yeah,
it's true, eh?
or 240 pounds.
Right. So then you got into match racing. I think I read you say or heard you say in one of the videos that one of the reasons was because the boats are sort of provided, right? So in a way, you can go, and it's a lot cheaper maybe than like trying to have like an ocean racing um, program or whatever.
Yeah, it's a really, really affordable way, I guess, to go and do some cool sailing. And I actually really enjoyed sailing with more people than just one other or by yourself. And yeah, to me, it was quite exciting. The match racing as well. It's yeah, it definitely gets the blood pumping and the adrenaline going when you're half a boat length within half a boat length of another boat the whole way around the track that you have to beat. So yeah, it's a cool little concept that they started in New Zealand at the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. They have a youth training program there for people under the age of 21, and they had 10, yeah, 10 6 meter keel boats that we used to go out on, I think, every Saturday, Sunday, and one night a week. And they sort of pushed you to go and do some big keelboat sailing as well. And yeah, that was super cool. I remember probably the first time I went somewhat fast on a boat was on a far 40. I think we're doing 15 knots down the harbour, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever.
Oh wow,
Times change.
it's so. Oh, I know. 15. Like I was talking to another guy who has the world laser speed record
Yeah,
on this podcast. I think it's maybe 17, 18 knots. Like that's the world record, right? And I mean, it's great. Like I do some cats. I've sailed 8 cats last summer and not foiling, but and I grew up racing sailing lasers. And I think when they were designed in the 70s, the lasers were fast boats,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But man, I was on the cat for about 5 minutes, and I was like, I'm never going back on a laser. This
yeah.
is way more fun. Um, so I think there's an argument to be made, and I was just thinking about that when I was kind of putting this together. That given that the match racers, you might race, well, you're gonna probably Bermuda do an IOD, the Catalina 37s, the Congressional Cup. You're like M32s where you can maybe tack once a leg. So I think that there's an argument to be made that the person who's the top match racer in the world is the one, if not one of, probably might be the best all around sailor in the world. How would you respond to that?
Uh, yes and no. I think there's an argument for it, but the one great thing about match racing is you did actually have to learn how to sail another boat at almost every event. So you would go from, yes, as you say, sailing an IOD to not quite at that time sailing an M32, but you'll be sailing a small sort of sports boat. So you had to be quite well rounded and be able to learn fast. And that was sort of the trick. We got given 2 hours before every event to learn the boat, and you spend that 2 hours pretty wisely. And yeah, you then you're into it, and you had to beat, yeah, 11 other teams. So it's quite cool, actually. It teaches you a lot, and I sort of, I guess people say, "Oh, does that sort of slow keelboat translate to what you do now?" And it actually does, because you kind of learn everything in quite slow motion, I guess, and the strategies and tactics and the teamwork and communication and what's actually important and what's not. And I guess that the F50 series or Sail GP is quite similar in the fact that you get so little time to actually train and practice that you've got to be so efficient with that time. And yeah, there's a lot of things in sailing that you can sort of take lessons from, and it all carries over forwards.
Is that true? You get 2 hours, like you show up the Congressional Cup and you get 2 hours to train on those things, and then they start you racing.
Yeah, basically, you get a 2 hour slot, and that's you. Good luck.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Have there been? I know the M32 became the kind of the standard, right, for the World Match Racing Tour.
Hmm.
Have there ever been any foiling match racing boats that?
No, there hasn't, but I've been pushing for it to happen. It'd be quite cool to see. There's about the 69F now.
Yeah, yeah.
It's little foiling monohulls, really simple. Yeah, something like that would be quite cool, and I actually think that will be the future. The future will be foiling match racing and small monohulls, or vice versa, catamarans as well. So, yeah, it's definitely bright. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really. That seems. I mean, I know they're doing it in the America's Cup, but it seems like
Mm.
just a different sport. Entire. I mean, it is. If you're trying to do a match race in the IOD versus one of those six, it's a different sport.
Yeah, it's a completely different sport. Yeah. But
Uh,
I still like the sailor that can do both. I think that's cool. And
yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of things, lessons you learn. And one of the biggest things I learned from sailing the IOD is actually how to turn a boat, and it's not through just the rudder; it's the whole team has to turn that boat. The jib trim has to be perfect, the main trim, the heel has to be perfect, and that's the same in an F50. If you want to turn the boat, you've got to use the sails to turn the boat as well. And yeah, I guess guys that skip that don't really understand it. So yeah, but in saying that, the future's pretty bright for the young kids these days. They've got some pretty cool boats to sail now and cool boats to learn it.
I should say, I'm in my son's 20 and he sails 49ers, and we're in a race. He hasn't got to foil yet. So it's like we're in a race to possibly foil first. He hasn't done it. They've got three of them. They got three wasps at the Royal Nova Scotia Yacht Squadron, and it's a race. I want to get on there first because he's spending all his time in the 49ers, so I can just slip in.
Yeah, go slip in there tomorrow. Go and rig it up and take
Oh
it out.
man, yeah. No, I can't wait. I know it's gonna happen. Okay, so how terrifying is it to pitch pole in an F50?
um, it's not that terrifying, to be honest.
Oh my god.
No, it's I've had a lot scarier ones in smaller boats.
Okay.
I guess the bigger the boat, the more slow motion things happen at. So I guess you know a bit sooner, and you can't do anything about it, and it all happens a bit slower. So yeah, I haven't seen or been involved in a really wild capsize or pitch pole in an F50, and yeah, every time I've seen another one, it all goes pretty slowly. So yeah, that's quite a good thing. They've got a lot of buoyancy in the bows, so when you get it wrong, it helps you out, I guess.
And you have something to grab onto, right? Like everyone just kind of hunkers down like they're in a foxhole.
Exactly. Being you're inside your cockpit, so it's actually it feels kind of safe, to be honest. So we started training the Canadian Sail GP team in the GC32, and that feels a lot dodgier than the big boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How did that training go? You were in Portugal or something?
Yeah, we did. We did it. We've done 2 camps in Portugal in a GC32, and yeah, it's been fantastic. I mean, most of the guys and girls hadn't really foiled much before or ever, and yeah, to give them that first experience and see how they respond, and to start teaching, it's yeah, a great little platform and some cool times.
Oh, that's cool. We had uh, so the foiling macro came out. There's only been one Olympics with that, I think, right?
Hmm.
So that's the only. And so we had one crew from Canada that was campaigning for that. Ali Surratt was the skipper. They were from Nova Scotia, and Max Flynn was the crew. And uh, anyway, they were the only like kind of serious foiling cat in Canada. In that they didn't actually qualify for the Olympics, but um, anyway, yeah, we did have those are like the only kind of foiling people in the country.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a little step to get into it, but it's yeah, very addictive once you try it.
that was what I was going to ask you actually. Is like when did you first get up on foils?
I was probably quite lucky. It was quite a long time ago, and first foil I did was on, um, I guess the test boats for the America's Cup teams. They had an SL33 that sort of came out around the Cup rule in 2012, probably, or 2011, 2012 for the 2013 Cup. And yeah, a friend of mine built one in Auckland and took me out one day racing around the harbour, and that was probably my first foil. But after that, I think it was a GC32. It was probably my
Okay.
first. Yeah.
And what about like the first time, like in a moth, or like when you were really one guy versus the wind, or together with the
Yeah,
wind?
I think I had an ACAT for a while, and that was I guess that was my platform of choice. And yeah, that's an awesome boat. They're so cool now, but it's just a little hard to store it, and it's just such a big platform and a massive rig, so hard to sort of transport and store. But besides that, it's a super super cool boat, and yeah, I actually miss mine a bit, so I'd love to get a new one. And yeah, jumped in a moth one day and loved that as well, and sort of I guess, yeah, as you pointed out, a lot of the top guys are racing moths, and there's a lot to be said about that. To one, just be racing against them, and the other one is the learning you do in that class is quite cool and quite unique, being a development class.
Right, right, right. The A class are fairly expensive. And which one would you think is more expensive to campaign between the Moth and
Uh,
the A cat?
the Moth is a bit more expensive to campaign.
Right.
Yeah, it's a bit more. I guess they've gone developed a lot more than the ACAT. So all the components and foils are
Right.
extremely expensive to produce. So it's a
And
bit of a shame, but it's quite a unique boat to be racing.
have you sailed a Wasp?
A few times, yeah. Sailed a Wasp a few times, and yeah,
How did
it's
they
a good little boat.
compare? How did they compare to a Moth?
They're quite obviously one of the big things is they're quite a lot heavier and
Oh, okay.
a lot more simple, I guess, in their um, construction as well. So yeah, the Moth is a lot lighter and the foils are a lot stiffer and quite a different boat really. The Moth is actually a lot easier to sail than the Wasp.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Huh.
Being it's a lot more refined and like foiling on a Moth is a lot easier than to foil on a Wasp. So it is a good platform. You learn a lot of good stuff on the Wasp, and yeah, they're harder to maneuver as well. So yeah, it's a good one for the kids, that's for sure.
Wow, that's interesting because I would have thought a more simple boat would be
Mm.
easier to get up. Um, so let's talk about the crew you've put together from Canada. I hear that Tim Hornsby puts out more wattage than anyone else in the world on the paddles. What do you think? Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think he's not. It's might not be too wrong. Yeah,
I heard his nickname was Paddles.
yeah,
I can't. Is that right? I can't release my sources. I don't know.
yeah. It's good.
Um, but you've got some good sailors. Like who's who kind of people, like Olympians, like with Tom Ramsey and I'm sorry, Tim Ramshaw and Luke Ramsey. What do you think about people he's put together and how they're working out and stuff?
Yeah, they're great. Look, I guess I had a little bit of guidance in that whole selection process from some Canadians. I'm very new to the country, and I haven't really been in the Olympic scene too much, so I don't really know them. Didn't know anyone before I met them for the first time in this team, and yeah, it's been quite unique, quite cool, and everyone offers something very different. And I guess the challenge of putting together a team is getting all the people, the right personalities together, and and the right skill sets as well, because everyone sort of comes from a different background and offers a different set of skills, and yeah, it's trying to piece that all together to see what will make an F50 go around the racetrack the best, and everyone's got to learn as well, and being able to learn fast is quite important.
Yeah, I just watched a video of you guys kind of doing the walkthrough in San Francisco. You just finished the other season, wasn't that long ago, and now you guys are ramping up. Like it just seems
Yeah, there's not a
it
lot of
seems
time.
hard.
There's not a lot of time and a lot to achieve in that short amount of time. So, yeah, we're pushing hard. We're pushing hard to learn fast, and it's a cool opportunity for Canada and an opportunity that everyone's grasped. So it's great.
It's amazing. Like you really guys have, it's not a huge scene,
Mm.
um, but when I seen the posts that SailGP Canada SailGP has put up, the people that are answering are not the usual suspects.
Oh,
They're like people I've never heard about. They're like, oh, I can't wait to see this race in Bermuda. It's going to be great. I'm there. I'm going. Whatever it is, it's amazing that. And I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Is it just the SailGP thing? I mean, I know um, yeah, it's sort of new for us, and it's just people are really
yeah.
excited. I don't know how do you describe that? Why is that?
Yeah, well, I guess it's hard to say. What Sail GP does really well is they broadcast it all, and it's a show. You know, it's there. You can see it, and it's a shame that not all yachting is produced to this sort of level. And it's a wicked opportunity for the sport with Sail GP doing what they're doing, and I think it's definitely getting a wider reach than what sailing would normally get, and that's exciting. It's exciting for Canada, and yeah, we're thrilled with the amount of support we've got so far and out of Canada, and we're pretty excited to get underway and show them what we can do.
That's cool. I mean, I think of it. The last time we had as big an event, like as big a kind of Canadian contingent in something was America's Cup. We had a
Mm.
boat in '83 and '87. I looked it up. Strange thing, but we were racing in the fall of 1987. I think that's when you were born, right?
That is pretty much when I was born.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was very exciting for Canadian sailors, but SailGP is a very, very big deal
Yeah.
for us. Um, so we're gonna. I was talking about collisions before, and so the F-50s, they don't seem like. It seems to me like from where I'm looking, like one of those, even though they're going really slow, one of those huge keelboats would almost be worse to T-bone with than the F-50. Can you can you describe the difference between hitting a boat and an F-50 versus a keelboat?
Yeah, I guess, yeah, maybe T-boning a J class is probably worse than doing it in an F50, but I think it's just the speed, and it's a quite a hot topic at the moment because there has been a few crashes, and I guess as a driver, when you crash one of these boats, it's an expensive boat, and it's at the end of the day, it's your responsibility, and yeah, I guess that's the hard part, and we're all pretty competitive, and crashing these boats now means that you're gonna miss races, and it's gonna hurt your season. So yeah, it's not something you want to do, that's for sure. And yeah, the speeds are quite phenomenal, and yeah, you don't really want to come together at those speeds. It's a scary thought.
It's amazing. Like I just see you guys ducking each other, and like when you get that camera, it's like, man, this is happening so fast. The other thing I noticed the other day, which I kind of couldn't believe, because the mark roundings, you guys are getting so close to the marks on these things. Like you're, it's just the skill level involved. To it's just a small detail, but
Yeah,
am I right? Am I seeing that right? Like you guys are getting really close, like as close as an opti almost. It
yeah,
seems
you
like.
probably sometimes get closer. Yeah, yeah. I guess it is a little bit of the skill level is there, but it's the boats. You've got a lot of control over the boats as well, driving it, so you can push it to really to the limit, and especially in roundings and dips. And I must admit, I've done a couple of dips on boats where I've had to close my eyes, thinking I've got it. Um, yeah, they've all seemed to be okay so far, but yeah, for sure the guys are not going to give away an inch on the race course. So when it comes to turning corners and dipping boats, you're going to make sure you're as close as you can be. And I guess years of doing it, you sort of get to that stage.
And how do you guys like? I guess it's the same as everybody. You get off the race course, you have a beer, and you say sorry or whatever happened. But how do you get on? These are like I don't know 9 other guys, and you're racing. God only knows how expensive these boats are. Um, like, what's it like on shore when you guys have to debrief or just
Yeah,
say, hey, what's up, Nathan? Or I just ran
yeah.
you over.
No, it's actually really friendly. And I'll probably put a disclaimer. At the moment, it's very friendly. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, everyone's pretty polite and friendly at the moment, and I'm not sure. Maybe that will change one day. Maybe it won't. But yeah, we'll
Right.
see.
Um, so in that original video the kind of meet Phil Robertson video, first of all, I have to say, so cool that it's Montreal based. Like that video, you standing in front of the Olympic Stadium, and 9 times out of 10, that's Toronto. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure what I went to university there. My dad grew up there. I think it's an amazing place. So
Mm.
I don't know what God's brought you to Montreal,
Yeah.
but I'm happy for it.
Fred brought us there.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
Tyler too. Tyler Bjorn, is he
Yeah,
involved?
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the majority of the team, I guess the guys Fred and Tyler that sort of created and started the team, they're all based out of Montreal. So naturally, that's where the team sort of come from, I guess, which is kind of
Right.
strange but very cool.
It's funny. Yeah, like I'm from New Brunswick, which is the next province over from Quebec, and always, like historically speaking, the sailors who were great at windsurfing or cat sailing, always from Quebec. Like the people that were like good at monohulls and like so-called, I don't know, more pure sailing were always from the other provinces. But I don't know. I mean, that's something about Quebec. I don't know. I think it's the European influence or the French influence.
Mm.
Um, but in that intro video, you said that sailing gives you a sense of freedom and dictated by nature. And when my son was little, he used to say like sailing was like magic. Like you just
Mm.
get in the boat and it just starts moving. Like how would you describe that?
Yeah, it is true. Yeah, I guess it is quite like magic. Yeah. So I guess the wind you can't really see it. So yeah, that's the
That's a
one
good
that
point.
it propels you forwards. And yeah, I just love the sport. It's a bit more stressful now when you go sailing. It doesn't really have that peaceful vibe about it anymore when you're doing the speeds we do, and the responsibility that you carry on these boats. But it's yeah, a very unique sport, I guess, and it's yeah, very very special. And yeah, for me, I just enjoy the nature aspect of it. You are dictated to by nature. Whatever it throws at you, you've got to sort of interpret it and then put it into practice better than your competitors, and that's quite unique and special. I think there's not many sports where you don't control very much. Like sailing, you have very little control over what is going on and yeah, over anything really. So it's quite cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But on that thought of the like magic of like a kind of whatever normal boat, do you ever think this is going to sound like a weird question, but when you're on the foiling of 50 going like as fast as a car on a highway, do you ever think like, holy crap, I'm just a human being. Like just me and four other people, human beings, are making this thing happen. Like, does that freak you out sometimes?
Not really. I think the whole time we're on it, we're probably thinking, how can we make this thing go faster? So, yeah, it's amazing how your senses sort of recalibrate. And I remember the first time on the boat and the first time sort of going over 40 knots, and you know about it. You're quite tense. Your hands are sweating, and yeah, now it's just a normal Sunday afternoon doing 40 knots, and it's quite boring and slow. So it's not until you're doing 50 knots that you start to think, yeah, this is quite cool. This is quite fast now. But yeah, it's amazing. Your whole body just calibrates, and that sense of speed sort of disappears after a while.
Okay. How fast have you gone on it?
I think just over 50 knots, probably. It's a bit.
That's in practice or in a race or
We did it. We've done it in racing. Yeah, I think in last season most boats were hitting over 50 knots at Mark One, sort of the bear away from a reach to downwind, and yeah, it's it's quite cool when you got 6 or 7 boats around you and you're all doing 50 knots and hoping no one gets it wrong.
I mean, that's the thing about that beam reach start that I mean, again, a purist would think
Mm.
it's weird, and maybe you wouldn't. Maybe which okay, what is cool about that? About
Uh,
that, like just drag race off the start.
Yeah, what I really like about it, and I know they sort of tested it, is it's if you with the reaching start, you have a bad start, and by the bottom mark, you're sort of at the back of the pack, but you've got options.
Oh
If you
yeah.
have a gate bottom mark, you're close, and you've got options. Whereas I think with an upwind start, if you have a bad start and you get bounced the wrong way, you're kind of out of the race. So with the reaching start, your race starts at the bottom gate and you're in the game no matter how well you started or not. So it's quite unique, I think, and the reaching start's obviously fast. It's the fastest point on the racetrack is when you go from that reach to the Bearaway, and yeah, it's I'm a big fan of them. I've been doing them
Okay.
for I don't know 6 or 7 years, and yeah, I think they're great.
But you wouldn't want to do it in like your in a match race, right? Like
Uh,
at
I guess we match raced the M32s with reaching starts, and
oh okay.
it was still super good. And same story with the upwind starts. If you get it wrong or start behind, it's really easy for the person in front in match racing to control the match from there. But with the reaching starts in a bottom gate, you can never really control them. You still got to be thinking your own game and ahead, and yeah, it opens up the game a lot more.
That's cool, because one of the questions I often ask in that rapid thing is like, how important is the start in a sailboat race? And people usually say like 70, 80%.
Mm.
So it's got to come down a bit with that reaching start, right? That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, it's probably about 20%, I reckon, the reaching start. So
That's
yeah,
amazing.
uh,
That's cool. I never thought of it that way. It keeps you in the game, and it's such a spectacle, right?
yeah, it is. And I guess as the fleets get bigger, becomes more important to start well. So you go for a match racing start reaching, it's not very important to start well. But yeah, once you start getting up to 10, 12 boats, then it's important to start well. And beyond 12, it gets interesting. It gets quite busy.
Well, what did we get? 10 this year, right?
Yeah, we'll be 10 boats this year. So that's going to be the racetracks haven't got any bigger and the locations haven't got any bigger. So there's going to be a bit of traffic around.
Wow. I think we're all very excited. Let's talk about the transition from Spain to Canada. I think everybody knows that you were unceremoniously dropped from Spain on the eve of the finals. And you said on Instagram, I respected and accept the decision to replace me for the final weekend of racing and moved on. What I can't accept are the words that were spoken about my character and departure. I feel dishonored and disrespected. How do you respond?
Yeah, it's a real shame actually. It was an incredible season. I think I sort of took a group of really really young guys with zero experience to very close to the top of the leaderboard, and I think their whole plan and I guess I was battling all season to sort of be able to sort of run it how I envisioned it should be run. And yeah, it was a battle for me in that position all season. And there was another helmsman coming in, and I was always going to be replaced. And he wanted time for the little time we had. He wanted to be training, and I wanted to be training. So it's never an easy situation, but um, I, yeah, I got to San Fran and they'd been training for 5 days, and I sort of said to them, "Look, I need more time, and I need a bit of time to get ready." And basically said to them, "You need to make a decision. You either give me 2 days of training, or Geordie should drive." And in the end, there was a decision which I thought was the right one, that he should drive. And yeah, I sort of had a plan to try and finish respectfully and do it all right, and show up the next day and sort of say, how can I help with the weekend? And yeah, I think there's a video press release that came out, which was just a bit nasty and not very respectful
Right,
to the
right.
effort you sort of put in. And yeah, it wasn't a pleasant ending to say the least. And it was pretty shattering to get comments. Mm.
I know we're getting on to the time. What kind of advice would you give to young sailors out there who might be listening, might want to be Phil Robertson one day?
I think that yeah, the outlier is you got to just enjoy it. You got to enjoy the sport and be willing to learn. And it's never too late. You're never not good enough as well. That's probably the biggest one, because I know guys that were never at the back of the fleet in every boat, and they've gone on and won the America's Cup. And you know the uh, dinghies are really body size and type dependent. And I always sort of say that I never really understood sailing until I was probably 17 or 18 years old. And kids put so much pressure on themselves to sail the Opti and be the national champion in all their youth classes, but that doesn't matter. That's
Wow.
not relevant. And if you're enjoying it and trying to understand it better, you're going to be a great sailor.
It's such great advice. You're never not
Mm.
good enough. You're never not bad at what did you say again? You're never whatever it was brilliant. Phil
Mm.
Robertson, thank you so much for being on the podcast and for sharing your time with us. Absolute best of luck in Bermuda and throughout the season. You've got a whole country cheering for you.
Yeah, no, it's going to be good. And yeah, thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. So thanks for your time.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, that does it for Whitecap, the Canadian Sailing Podcast. And thanks again to Phil Robertson.